Good morning, everyone. This is a meeting of the Baltimore County Delegation, House Delegation. It is Friday, the 22nd of March, and we have a presentation today. And then after that, we have some bills to hear because they'll be a little different or new to us. And then we have some bills which are very similar to or exactly the same as bills that we passed over to the Senate. And so with that, we had the suggestion was to have Baltimore Gas and Electric do a presentation to us today. And this suggestion came from Delegate Phillips. And so I'm going to hand it off to him to say hello and introduce our guests today. Delegate Phillips, you have the floor.
Good morning. Good morning, colleagues. I think just before the session began, I had a conversation with Kirk Mitchell. And for those who are not familiar with Kirk, before moving over to BGE, he was with our county executive, doing a lot of community work in the Northwest sector. And in that conversation, he mentioned a number of things that were going on at BGE that impact our constituents. And so this morning, I think we're joined by a number of individuals from BGE. Ms. Brittany Jones, who I see, Mr. Kirk Mitchell. I see someone that says Polly, BGE, so I'm assuming that's also one of our BGE representatives. But this morning, they're going to speak to us about some of the things that are impacting our communities and our constituents. You know, I wanted to tee them up. There have been a lot of conversations around Brandon Shores, and they'll talk about what that is. And there's been a lot of conversation about the PSC multi-year plan. And so with that, I think I'll turn it over. And I guess I'm turning it over to you, Brittany. Are you going to start us off?
Sure, I'd be happy to. I'm going to attempt the logistics to share my screen. So fingers crossed.
Thank you.
How do we look?
You're on.
You are on. And I didn't give titles. So Brittany Jones is the
Let's stop real quick. Brittany, you may want to go to full screen there. Yeah, we don't need to see all your messages. That's probably none of our business.
No, I'm trying to figure out where it just went. There we go.
Good. All right. Sorry, Delegate Phillips.
I was just saying I didn't give
a certain amount of personal information.
So I wanted to introduce Brittany as I believe it's correct, the Director of Government Affairs for BGE. So thank you, Brittany.
Oh, thank you so much, Delegate Phillips, and thank you to the delegation for having us. We are so happy to be here. I do want to shout out Kirk Mitchell. We did steal him from you guys from Baltimore County, and he has been such an asset. There he is. And he's all about getting us more embedded in Baltimore County. So we're so ecstatic to have him. So again, thank you for making the connection, Kirk. And we're pleased to be here. We're always accessible to you guys. Our presentation today is going to focus on Brandon Shores. So for some of the delegates that have work that's going to be impacted specifically within their district, we have had those conversations. And we're going to give an update more broadly of what this is, and then also focus on the community engagement piece and let you know which communities we talk to. So I do have Zach Mitchell also with BGE, who's our senior manager of big projects. He's going to co-present with me today. So I will dive right in and kick it off. So with Brandon Shores, for those of you who haven't heard yet, there is a coal burning power plant in Anne Arundel County. It's in Curtis Bay, right over the Key Bridge. That Curtis Bay Industrial Park is called Brandon Shores. And they announced their intention to retire, and they really want to retire June 1st of 2025. So this power plant's now owned by Talon Energy, not any connection to BGE or Exelon. It's completely owned independently by a separate company. So the way the process works is once a power plant wants to retire, then they have to make that indication to PJM. PJM is the local regional transmission organization, so they're responsible for overall grid reliability within the region that we operate in Maryland. They have about 10 states where they're looking at capacity and grid resiliency across the board. So when that happens, PJM does a study and says, there's no way you can go offline June of 2025 because this region, specifically Central Maryland, will be having rolling brownouts. I mean, we use that generation plant for peak capacity. So on those coldest days, that's when that generation plant comes into play. So if we don't have it, we are absolutely going to have some blackouts happening. So when they say you can't retire that soon, what that causes is a reliability must run order. And you'll hear that referred to as an RMR. The reason why that's really important is because it gives so much negotiation power to the entity that owns the generation facility. So essentially they want to retire. PJM saying you can't retire that soon because we need to figure out how to bring new generation of electricity into the region. So you have to stay in operation until we can get that other work plan figured out. So that gives them maximum leverage for price. When a generation facility is issued an RMR, they then get to charge a premium to stay in operation. So that is something we continue to raise as risk to our ratepayers because it's going to be bared by all of us. So the work plan that needs to be done, and that's what Zach's going to really go through in detail with you guys in the 15 minutes that we have. That's what BGE's been directed to do. So we essentially have to bring in new power generation from a nuclear plant right over the PA line and then build a lot of transmission equipment, a couple substations. So that way we can bring that generation of electricity back to the region. We project that's going to take a few years. So what that means is BGE's doing the work, and it also means Talon Energy stays in generation while charging that RMR. So really concerned. We continue to do this outreach to as many legislators, the county executives, the Department of Permitting, our regulators, everyone that we can, because the quicker we get this work done, the sooner that RMR stops billing out. So I think with that, I covered just about everything on the intro slide. One important note, and I know Zach will get into this, which is really good for us and constituents. We have an existing right-of-way that we're able to leverage to do this work. The new substations being constructed are on BGE-owned land, thank goodness. So we don't expect where we need to get into land acquisition and those type of conversations. So with that, I am going to kick it over to Zach to get into the nitty-gritty.
Brittany, thank you so much. Leaders, thank you for the opportunity to present virtually. I look forward to meeting you in person and continuing these conversations. As Brittany said, PJM is the architect of this plan. When Talon Energy notified our transmission operator of their intent to retire, we were given a direction of how to perform in order to keep a reliable service for the Central Maryland territory and our connecting states. A little background on Brandon Shores, they generate roughly 1,300 megawatts of power. It's a quite sizable load. In response, we have to perform a very similar sizable project to mitigate the loss of that power. In fact, this project bundle is the largest in BGE's history. Not only do we have work to perform, I want to acknowledge that PEPCO and PHI, the utilities to the north and south of us, they have work to perform as well. We have the most, but we require them to continue their work, get permits, continue their efforts, because we can't allow Talon to decommission until all of these activities are complete. Specific to BGE's response, we have to install or reconductor roughly 40 miles of transmission work between Delta, Pennsylvania, down to Batavia Road through territories in Hartford and Baltimore County. Essentially, we're going to install roughly 30 miles of transmission line on existing rights-of-way between the Grayston location, which is in northern Hartford County, to the Rosedale area, a site that BG already owns on Batavia Farm Road. From that location, we're going to reconductor, meaning we're just going to change the wire size on existing towers between Batavia Road and an existing Riverside substation. Batavia Road's really special because that is going to be a brand new substation. In parallel to performing all the transmission work, we have to install 2 new substations on existing BG properties, one in Rosedale and one in Anne Arundel County, right across the street from where the Brandon Shores power plant currently sits. As well, we have to make modifications to numerous other substations in our territory. Good news there is we already own those sites, and all the work that we have to perform can be performed inside of our fence ring. So to summarize, all of this work has to be complete before Talon can shut down. We are hoping to complete this work. We're targeting December of 2028. BG has put together tiger teams, really focused on this effort. We want to condense or crunch as much as we can to offset that RMR for the customers for BGE. Like I said, Talon wants to shut down in 25, so there is a few years of time in between those time points there. We already have started our outreach efforts, and we are in the communities. Brittany, if you could move to the next slide, let's talk about what we've done so far. So as of the creation of this slide, we've engaged 28 officials, offices, and 10 community organizations and various organizations in Baltimore County. Just last night, we were at Solars Point, giving an update on this project to the residents in that community. A few weeks ago, my peers met with Councilman Crandall and some leaders that represent Old Dundalk, St. Helena, Rosedale, Turner Station, and Water's Edge to provide a briefing to those communities as well. We're going to be in Kingsville and Perry Hall on April 8th, and we're looking to put a virtual presentation together in early April as well. So we'd like to share those invites with you. So like I said, we started targeted awareness with elected officials and offices, and we're continuing our outreach through communities and revising our outreach plan based on feedback from those presentations. As this project continues, you're going to hear my raspy voice a lot. You're going to see my team in the streets and in the communities providing updates, working with communities that may be impacted. And I ask all of you on the call today, if you know of a community or you hear of a community that's being impacted, share that feedback with us so we can ensure we stay and create a presence and stay in that community. I see a handful of hands up. I don't know if we have an operator that wants to call on people.
Yeah, that gets to be me, Zach. I'm Eric Emerson. So, but I want to make sure that you're fully done your presentation. Are you complete here?
That wraps up my slides, but I also want to add one note. This is a large project, and we're not, as we are focused on the level of construction, I want to highlight that within a quarter mile of all of this activity, there are 8,400 property owners that may be impacted or will be seeing this constant effort over the next few years. So we know who these people are, and we are targeting those communities. And based on that feedback, we're going to revise our efforts over the next few years. So thank you, sir. That was my last note.
Excellent. And thank you. I think the suggestion by Delegate Phillips that you come is good. I appreciate your transparency, that you're making sure that we understand there are going to be some impacts and changes here. I will say that as per usual, and Brittany, this probably falls to you, if you could forward this presentation to the Justin, with whom you've been communicating about coming to this meeting, then he will take on making sure that it is distributed to all the members of the delegation so that they can review it and look at it and use it to form questions and inform constituents at the same time. There are a lot of good, and I assume, Brittany, you've got access to it because it's on your computer. So anytime you want to do that to Justin, his is the BCOD address that you see, Baltimore County Delegation. All right. Well, enough of that. With that, let's go to some questions. I'm sure there are a few. And first, we'll talk with Delegate Ruth. You have the floor.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and thank you, Zach, and the team. Definitely look forward to future presentations on this. It's a lot to take in a very short time, and I think definitely we want more information on it. I just had I think it's a quick question, but if I understand right, you're not bringing on any new like clean energy transmission projects to replace this. You're looking at bringing in, you talked about substations, and I'm sorry, I don't have the right language, but bringing in electricity from other places to replace it. Am I understanding that right?
Zach, I can jump in for that one. It's a great question, Delegate Ruth. Thank you. So we are bringing in generation from a nuclear plant. Some would argue that that is a clean generation source. And then we are building the transmission to be able to get the electric to this area in Central Maryland. That question comes up a lot, though. Did PJM look into alternate energy sources like solar generation or things of that nature? Because this RMR is going to start billing folks at a rapid pace in June 2025, PJM need to find the quickest and most efficient and effective way to get energy into the region. And then that's why it became, there's a nuclear plant that's not generating at full capacity. We can bring it in an existing corridor, and that's the most cost-effective, quickest way to bridge the gap of what energy we're losing. So that's why they made that decision. But it does come up a lot.
Yeah, no, and I understand, there's a backlog of trying to get these clean energy projects connected to PJM, and there's some work trying to address that as well. Is the nuclear plant's not in Maryland? Is that in Pennsylvania?
Correct. It's called Peach Bottom Nuclear Plant, right over the Pennsylvania line.
Okay, thank you so much.
Yeah, great question.
Thank you, Delegate. And now I see a couple hands up from people where I saw a line through the map that is their squarely some part of their county. So Delegate Naraki.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I appreciate it. I'll be brief. I just have a couple questions. One, could we get a more detailed alignment of that, of where the power lines are going to go through? I've requested this from the PSC, but I have not yet received that back. I'll also say that certainly I don't want to speak for Delegate Schlega, and I don't want to speak for Delegate Arcon, who's in Harford County, but our seatmate in District 7, it is a significant amount through our districts. We have been getting a lot of feedback about this. Would have been a little bit nice to have this meeting before we started kind of getting blown up by residents in Kingsville and Perry Hall and other parts of our district, not to kind of get this after the fact, because it is probably primarily through our district and Delegate Arcon. So I'm sure that I can speak for them and say that I would really like to get a meeting together with y'all very soon, because we're getting a lot of questions about this.
No, we had a meeting with
Yes,
them.
sir. Happy to support that conversation as well. As I've taken the maps and we have zoomed in so you can see cross streets and actual impact to the roadways and residents on those roadways. So I can work with my team to set up that conversation with you, and as well share those maps in advance of the meeting so you are aware.
Great. Thank you.
Thank you.
And Delegate, I would say if you get that meeting going, even though we would let you largely be the running that meeting because it affects you most directly, I would be grateful if you'd include the other members of the delegation if they wanted to come and listen in.
Mr. Chair, absolutely. Anybody that wants to participate, of course. Absolutely, sir.
Okay, thank you. Delegate Schlega, good morning.
Good morning. Thanks, Mr. Chair. You said Brandon Shores is a 13 megawatt producer of power. Is that what you said?
Roughly 1,300 megawatts, ma'am.
1,300 megawatts. Thank you. Tell me how many solar farms that would be.
I can't give you an honest answer. I can dig into that, but solar farms vary in size from location to location, so I could give you some comparables, and then we could do some math to give you that answer if that's fair, ma'am.
Yeah, so just spitballing it here, would there be any possible way that solar farms or wind farms could possibly generate that much power?
It would have to be quite substantial. So what I
Like
can do
maybe,
is
yeah,
I can pull some comps in the area, and then we could do some math to see what the acreage and the impact of those panels.
Okay, thank you. And finally, Delegate Naraki was nice. I would say I'm very upset that you have not contacted us. This is going through the middle of our district. And the fact that Delegate Phillips invited you on this call from the west side, it's frankly, I'm really disappointed that you haven't contacted the legislators that are directly impacted by this. And we've heard some rumblings from our district. And then secondly, April 8th is Sine Die. And you're having a meeting in Kingsville, which is the heart of District 7, on the day that we can't be there. So I want to just on the record tell you that's very upsetting as well. Thank you.
Delegate Schlega, thanks so much for the feedback. So I think with Delegate Naraki, I know we haven't met with him yet, but my team did come out, I think, to your district and to a few others very early on. It was early on, and we committed to come back when we have 30% designs where it's more definitive. But I do agree with you. Communities are hearing more, so we'll continue to connect directly, get more maps. I think, Zach, are we close to that 30% design mark now? I know we expected it in April.
That's correct. It's due at the end of April.
Well, again, I would just tell you it's having a meeting in Kingsville, which again is the heart of our district on a day that you know we can't be there, is poor planning.
We'll take that feedback and reschedule. I think that's a really excellent point, and we're grateful that you want to be there in attendance. Definitely a miss. So thanks so much for the feedback. We'll be in touch with your office and others to make sure we're coordinated.
Thanks, Delegate Schlega, and thank you for the indication that you'll be responsive to those concerns. We appreciate that. Delegate Long.
Brittany Guy, November 2nd. I don't see any
Okay, we
notes.
have someone.
Di,
who-
yep,
Di
sorry.
needs to mute if you don't. There she goes. All right, we sometimes do that ourselves if we pick it up quickly enough. Delegate Long.
Thank you. I'm extremely upset that you come to Solars Point yesterday and didn't notify us. That's right in my district also. And, I know we're in session yesterday, but I would still really like to attend to see what the community feedback was. Would you kind of brief us on what transpired yesterday?
Sure. Yeah, Zach, you can touch on that. I will say that this was a good energy community event that was scheduled by one of my teams with community engagement, and it was focused on all the project work that's happening. So there was just an update for everything, all the gas work. There's some electric projects going on. And then Brandon Shores was touched on. So Zach, I know you led that presentation. Do you want to give some insight there?
Absolutely. Thanks, Brittany. And thank you for the question. So we presented on this topic for roughly 15 minutes, and there were two main focal points of questions. One was focused on the ability of a power plant to send in their notice of or intent to retire, and them having the opportunity to retire without feedback or resistance, right? So there was a lot of focus on just the ability of a power plant to shut down. Then we spent a few minutes talking about the reliability of our system if we lose this power plant. There were numerous questions that asked, what happens if a Peach Bottom power plant goes down? What happens if we lose that main vessel that we're bringing in from Maryland? So we spoke to the theory of the solution with the community, and as well, we had a lot of sidebar conversations at the table expressing concern with electrification and the loss of power plant happening at the same time. So great question.
Right. One last question.
Okay.
Was the community told that the rate hikes are going to be on the way because of the power plant being closed down and have to pay Peach Bottom a premium?
Yes, we did. We did discuss the RMR, sir.
Yeah, and Delegate Long, we'll connect with you directly to do the deep dive. Our apologies for missing that as well. I mean, we'll definitely own that. You absolutely should have been notified. So we'll connect with you to do a deep dive. But I will say that what continues to ring true is that constituents, our customers, are really concerned about pricing impact. I mean, they really are concerned. And we continue just to echo that and reinforce it. There are some things that the legislature is looking at. I know there's a bill that's out there to see if we can leverage something like battery storage to deploy in order to cut back that RMR timeframe. So it is a prime topic, and anything we can do to accelerate our work to cut that back, we are committed to doing.
Brittany, for the uneducated, including myself, RMR, can you spread that one out for me?
Yeah, that's the reliability must run. So because we're forcing this generation plant to stay in operation longer than their intended retirement date, they then get to charge a premium to stay in operation.
Delegate ever saw one quite finished.
Okay, well, I recognize you for another question. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. And one of the reasons you're closing down Brandon Shores because it's a coal fire burning plant, am I correct?
So we are not closing it down. We don't own Brandon Shores. This is Talon Energy. They haven't been explicit to give the indication publicly of why they're closing, so I just can't speak to them.
Okay, because I know there was a big investment about burning clean coal over there, and I'm just curious why they're closing it down. And I have a feeling I know the reason, but this is quite alarming that we weren't involved in this in the conversations with our communities. Thank you.
Okay, and thank you, Delegate Long. Senator Brooks, how are you doing today? You have the floor, sir.
He got into.
Hey, Jack,
I
Jack
raised
Milani, can you mute yourself, please?
I'm allowed to ask a question. I guess I put my hand up.
You put your hand up, man. You know,
Oh,
we
okay,
invite the
sure.
senators to the meeting.
I'm fine asking a question.
You can't vote on any of the
Yeah.
bills, but you're welcome to ask questions of our guests.
Okay,
Yes.
thank you. Yeah, Brittany, I think you just answered part of the question I have, whether or not Brandon Shores was a generation or capacity, and it's 1,200, almost 1,300 megawatts of generation. That's going to be going offline.
Correct.
Okay, yeah. And then the other part, yeah, with that RMR, that like what Delegate Long was talking about, that is going to increase the cost because the ratepayers are going to be paying a premium. Any idea of what type of percent or what type of cost the ratepayers are gonna be saddled with?
Yeah, it's a great question, and we are just as anxious to find out. What I can tell you is the amount hasn't been agreed upon. They're in negotiation, Talon Energy and PJM. And I know that there was an offer made, which was a lot of money, and then Talon denied that. So I really think they have a lot of leverage, and they're going back and forth trying to make that negotiation. We've heard some ballpark numbers, but I think they're just that ballpark. So if I had a more definitive answer, I'd be glad to share on record.
Okay, and the other concern too, I know there's a bill coming out of the House, ECM, and about Empower, and then rather than amortizing the cost, it's going to be expensed, which is another increased cost to the ratepayers. So the ratepayers, there is major concerns about all of these increases, and coming somewhat pretty close at the same time.
Yeah, and we're just as concerned with you, Senator. It's why we did submit a letter of opposition, just because making that substantial change for Empower increases the line item surcharge significantly at a time where we know we have to construct this big project. The RMR is going to kick in. So we are advocating just as hard for affordability.
Okay. And then, and also, I guess I don't know whether we can reach out to Talon to find out why they're going offline at this time, because with that premium increase, they're going to be generating the same amount of capacity, but at the same time, the prices are going to be going up way high at that premium cost. So it doesn't seem like it's to benefit the ratepayers at all.
Yeah, and I'm happy to do some research and try to connect you with their government relations contact.
Okay. All right, thanks, Brittany, and thank you, Chair.
And so, Brittany, I assume this also means you don't know what their future plans are for that location.
No, we don't.
As much as it's not in your purview. Okay, thank you.
We don't have any insider knowledge. We see what the public sees.
Indeed. Okay. Well, I like to call him last, but he's been there for a while. Delegate Phillips.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I got a couple of questions. One of them came up as a result of my senator. For those of us who are not on an energy committee, what is Empower going to do? Since he raised that.
Yeah, sure.
The second one is, we really didn't touch on the multi-year plan. How does that work, and what is that going to do? And then the third really is, in our district in Windsor Mill, we have a pretty large BGE facility. Is there anything taking place with that we should know about in the Northwest?
Let me try to tackle all of the above. So the first one, Empower. So Empower is a program that's been in existence for a while. If you actually pull up your BGE bill, you would see it as a line item today. So it's a line item on the bill, and it's directly all what the customers pay as that surcharge goes right back into energy efficiency investment. So this is where customers can choose to get a quick home energy checkup, an energy audit. They used to get free light bulbs. So that's what the legacy Empower program has been. Most recently, that surcharge line item, it's been about $8 if you have both gas and electric. If you're a dual customer, it's been about $8. What this new legislation does, it does two things. The first part is it changes the program goals from kilowatt reduction to greenhouse gas reduction. So we're aligned with that because that's where we're going to align with Climate Solutions Now Act. So we're just looking at a different measurement to determine the success of the program. What it does secondly, the way that we've financed Empower for as long as it's been in existence is through amortization. So we pay the debt off over a period of time. And what that's allowed us to do is to keep that monthly surcharge price somewhat reasonable for customers. What this new bill does is it takes away the amortization completely and requires us to switch to an expensing model, which means we are paying this bulk of a program off in 1 year. So that's very concerning, which is why we've opposed the bill, because the projections show that our next program cycle in 2026, that line item is going to go from about $8, again, if you have both gas and electric, to $29 as just a line item on the bill. What this bill also does is it expands the power and it includes beneficial electrification. So this is like another subset of the program, which means the cost of the program is going to include or increase if we have to be bound to finance this just through a surcharge mechanism. So our main argument that we're saying is to give flexibility to the Public Service Commission to determine how best to finance this, given all the rising costs around customers. So we have everything increasing right now at a time. We really don't think it's in the best interest of our customers to have a line item, just a line item, not your usage, not your delivery, nothing else, just a line item go to $29. So I'll let folks react to that. That's the Empower piece. The second question was about the multi-year rate plan. So we did get that approval in December of 2023. And those rates went into effect, the change went into effect January of 2024. The way we do our rate making is that we do a 3-year forward-looking plan to the Public Service Commission to communicate all the work that we're going to be doing. And then we set the rates accordingly so we can, again, try to balance that debt, spread it out over a period of time. So on average, if you're a dual customer, I think the increase was close to, it was between $5 and $10 each month of an increase just for all the infrastructure that we're going to need to build to support electrification and Climate Solutions Now Act. And then your third one about Windsor Mill, I'm not as familiar with that one, so I might have to take that back unless you have more context to give that an answer.
No, just curious about the plant facility in that area.
Yeah, I don't know about the plant. Zach, do you know about a plant facility there?
I don't think we have a plant facility, maybe a substation. I think Granite is recognized on the map, the Granite substation, or are you referring to our offices on Lord Baltimore Drive?
The offices on Lord Baltimore Drive, all of the facilities around there.
Yes, sir. Great question. So at that location, we have numerous buildings that are close to one another, and they are very critical to our success. One is our warehouse at Rutherford. The second is the electric operations building on Windsor. That is where we have the brain of our electric operations located. And adjacent to that is a complex on Lord Baltimore Drive, which houses our engineering departments.
And so no plans to do any changes at that location in terms of employees, in terms of no plans to change anything at that location?
No, sir. We're always looking for good engineers. So if you know anybody, we are actively recruiting in that space.
Okay. Thank you.
Thanks
Thank you,
for the
sir.
Thank you, guys, and thanks, Delegate Phillips. And now, Delegate Long, you came up first. Do you have another bite at the apple, sir?
Yes, I would. Thank you, Chair. You mentioned the line item. It's now at $8 and could possibly go up to $29 if you have gas and electric. Is there any way to opt out of paying that line item, especially if you have a house that's energy efficient?
Great question. The answer is no. It's existing law today that all customers would fund the Empower Maryland program. It's HB 864 if anyone's interested. And I know we have Senator Brooks on here. He actually just heard the hearing yesterday, so it's with his committee in EEE.
So there's a pending law that would change that, or okay, and change it to be not optional, or is it not optional in current?
It's not optional today. What the new law does is changes the goals of the program to go from kilowatt reduction, so energy reduction, to greenhouse gas emission reduction goals. And then it does prescribe the only way we can finance the program is through a surcharge with no amortization.
And I'm sorry, Delegate Long, I jumped you. Did you want to follow up?
Yes, one last question. If you live in a house that's all electric, and you don't have no emissions, the greenhouse effect or whatever, which my house is completely electric and most of the homes around us are we still going to have to pay that fee for the reduction of greenhouse?
Again, it's for all customers. If you only have electric, I believe the line item projections going to be about $22 compared to that 29, so still costly. But there are a wide variety of programs that you would still be able to benefit from through Empower. Even if you just have electric, you can do weatherization, you can get insulation, you can do things to make your home more efficient, still to reduce your kilowatt consumption. But that's the idea of it.
Right. Well, I understand that, but you know, myself, this house is only 14 years old, so I know it's energy efficient.
Yeah.
I've got R19 in the walls. I built it to be energy efficient just for this reason. I just can't believe we got to keep paying this line item, even though we're adhering to it. Thank you.
Thanks, Delegate Long. We're getting a little off topic here, but I appreciate your questions. Delegate Bendari.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I know it is very complicated issues, given the complexity surrounding the deactivation project, including the transition towards sustainable energy practices, the impact on the local and broader electricity supply grid, and the negotiation with the environmental groups. Could you please elaborate on the strategic approaches being considered to mitigate potential electricity supply disruption, if there is any in the future? It impacts our district as well. District 8, my colleagues, Delegate Allen and Jackson should be on the line as well. At least I was not informed. And additionally, how is the project aligned with our clean energy goals and the broader ESG commitment, while ensuring economic stability for the affected community during and after the transition?
Thank you for the question. I'll start.
That was a mouthful. Good luck with that, Brittany.
Yeah, it was a lofty question, but I'll take a stab at it, and I'll invite Zach to chime in too. So first, to address how this helps us meeting the sustainability goals and moving to more clean energy production and transmission, we're going to need the infrastructure we're building for Climate Solutions Now Act as we move to be carbon neutral. There's no doubt about it. So all the work that we're doing, building more substations, building 42 miles of new transmission, all of that infrastructure is absolutely essential for us to be able to move to electrification. So even if you do have solar, if you do battery storage, you can interconnect that to the infrastructure that we're building today. BGE has done a study there was an independent study performed to show how we can meet carbon neutrality by the deadline. And there's multiple paths. We have an integrated model that shows what we need to do to be able to get there. And this is all a part of it. So that model actually shows if we did full electrification without any other energy sources. So we still believe you need some gas on the system, maybe geothermal, you need a little bit of everything. So that way we're diverse and not reliant on just one energy source. But even with that, if it was full electrification, we would need like 200 more substations and endless miles of transmission. So all of this really does support where we're moving to expand electrification. And secondly, Zach, do you want to take the one about capacity?
Yeah, so great question, Delegate. Thank you. PJM, when they performed their immediate study, one of the tests that they run is titled N-1-1, meaning if you lose one transmission circuit, what happens to the transmission circuit adjacent to it? So this vessel or tributary of power running from Delta, Pennsylvania to Central Maryland adds another vessel of power to our territory. What that does is it allows for a greater sense of redundancy and reliability, that if one transmission circuit does go offline or there is a trip at a power plant, that we have other circuits that can feed the transmission ring in our territory.
Okay, I see Delegate Mdari's got his mic off, so I think he answered his questions. And we have Delegate Ruth for a second round. How are you doing today? Let's go again.
Oh, thank you, Mr. Chair. So first of all, this wasn't the question I was going to ask, but following up on the questions about Empower and that line item, does the Empower program help low-income Marylanders to be able to achieve energy efficiency?
Great question. And yes, today the program does as well. So if you're low income, you can qualify for some additional program incentives. So the weatherization program, we do partner with the Department of Housing. So that way they can come in and they can get more additives as well. The bill before us keeps those same types of measurements as well. So it's beneficial, especially to limited income who might not be able to afford through other means, but also there's no income restriction. So everybody can really benefit
Right.
from the energy
But-
efficiency measures.
But so the line item is not just about our own house, it's about making sure everyone in Maryland can get these kind of
Sure, that's a great point.
improvements to energy efficiency today and to reduce greenhouse gases also, which is also going to impact all of us if that bill were to pass.
That's an excellent point. Very
Okay.
well said. Yes,
Thank
and then I
you.
should say that the Public Service Commission actually has already altered the Empower program to include the greenhouse gas emission goals. So that's already happening at the regulatory level. And in fact, the program year, the next 3 cycle we just found already changes to the greenhouse gas reduction. So that's another reason we're just you don't necessarily need this new law to make those changes happen since they're already in motion.
Thank you. And my last question, the one that I was actually going to ask is about the multi-year rate plan, which you discussed very briefly. And does that include amortizing expanding gas infrastructure?
Great question. So not necessarily expanding. We have a separate program for that. So multi-year rate plan it's the capital plan, the 3-year outlook. The gas program that we have is actually funded under STRIDE, which is a monthly surcharge. It's capped at $2. And that fund allows us to replace aging infrastructure that are leak prone and are actively leaking gas emissions. So that's another environmental benefit. I know we've been able to reduce gas emissions by about 34% just through that STRIDE program alone. So that's really about replacing aging infrastructure, not necessarily expanding it.
Okay, that's good. I mean, obviously it's important to replace, where there are leaks, but I don't know that we should be expanding gas infrastructure when we're moving towards electrification.
Yeah, so no deliberate plans in our MYP for that, the multi-year rate plan. I will say if there's a new development that goes up and it's requested by a developer, if they want to have dual service, that's the only case really that we could see expansion.
Thank you so much.
Sure, thank you.
Thank you, Delegate Ruth, for the questions and the clarifications. And you can see that there's a number of concerns here. We took a couple of side streets during this, and I appreciate we were originally here to talk about Brandon Shores and the impact that would cause with Peach Bottom. But you have you've been very good about answering questions on other topics as well at the same time. I'm sure this is going to be ongoing because obviously there's some concern, especially on the east side of the county and Harford County about the new transmission. But I appreciate that you're here. People are a little bit worried that we weren't informed, but I want to point out that you are here today to talk to the delegation. And now we have some faces and some names, and I'm sure that you guys will be ready to talk to us individually or in groups if we ask you to.
Yes, and Mr. Chair, if I could add one quick thing.
You
I took note of every person that
thing.
expressed concerns. We're going to follow up individually with you. And also, I just wanted to point out the timeline of construction. Right now, this was really early on in design phase. We don't have 30% designs yet until this April-May timeframe. So this whole year is going to be just filing permits. We don't actually start construction until, at best case scenario, the very end of 2025 next year. So we have ways to go. So there's going to be a lot of engagement and communication to come. I took notes of our missed opportunities. So again, thank you all so much for being participatory and letting us know what's needed. We'll certainly improve.
Thank you for that addition. And thank you. You got a number of you here, but you and Zach have been quite good about making sure that you answer the question as best your ability and then saying you'd be available for other things. So grateful to your presence. We're going to go on and work on some bills. You're welcome to watch, but it won't be the most interesting part for you. So, but if you want to stay on, we won't kick you off. So that concludes the presentation, the BGE presentation. I'm going to move to discussion and possible voting. We have 3 bills from the Senate which need a very short amount of work, and we're going to dispense with those in the rare case that the others cause more discussion. So I'm going to move to first of all, Senate Bill 78, which is the School Board Nominating Commission bill. And I'm going to move, this bill has a slightly different amendment than the delegation approved. So I'm going to call on the Education Subcommittee Chair, Delegate Forbes, to make a motion on this bill.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I make a motion to conform the bill to the amendments that the delegation have previously approved.
Are there, and with that, we would consider that a favorable motion when we conform it in that way. So I heard a second, if everybody understands the motion. We're gonna do it in one motion here. We're not gonna spend a lot of time on something that we've already addressed and amended, but we just have a slightly different amendment that we approved. I have a second. Is there any discussion on the bill? Yes, Delegate Schlega.
Thank you so much. Can you describe to us the difference between the Senate version and our version?
That'd be up to you. Yeah, thank you, Delegate Forbes.
So, thank you, Delegate Schlega. So we worked with the Attorney General's office to make sure we were walking the line between transparency and protecting the appointment process and the interview process. So our bill makes a few changes. It makes the committee release the names and a brief bio of everyone who's applying. It makes the committee interview privately, but tape all of those interviews and use them for reference. It makes them make any decisions public, include putting it on the website, and it also includes information about, so whoever they decide to send to the governor becomes public when they make the decision, and that wasn't true before. And then the final thing that we do is it gives a process for removing people from the nominating commission that is in line with their bylaws.
Thank you.
Okay. Any further discussion on the bill with the amendment, with amending it to conform to the version that we previously approved in the delegation? Okay, I don't sense a lot of resistance, so I'm going to take a hand vote on this. All in favor of sending the bill to the committee, raise your hands. And if you're not on camera, one of the hands up is great. Any opposed? Take down your hands, all you positive voters, if you would, please. Any opposed? Do I see any hands for opposition? Okay, seeing none, we'll send that bill on to the Ways and Means Committee with the amendments that we recommended to it. There are two other bills, Senate Bill 451 and Senate Bill 804, which are identical matches to the versions that we approved. I'm going to go to the Vice Chair for a motion on these bills.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I move favorable as a consent calendar on the two bills you just mentioned.
Okay.
Second.
I have a second. Is there any discussion?
Can we touch on what the bills are briefly, please?
Yes. One is the non-student member compensation. It increased it. We did amend it, and so did they, so that the student wouldn't begin to receive the compensation before the other members, as you cannot make someone's salary go up during their time in office. Since student members are replaced every year, they would have actually been earning a stipend, well, in their case, a scholarship that was greater than the stipend of the members. So there was an amendment put on by both us and the Senate to delay that part of the bill until the new board members come in.
What was the other bill?
The other bill, sorry. The other bill is, and I might have to turn to, Senator Brooks is here, but also I know that this is Delegate Phillips, Northwest Baltimore County Sports Tourism Facility, a feasibility study on that. Yes, Delegate Schlega, how you doing this morning?
Great. Thanks so much, Mr. Chair. I assume you're going to vote them separately.
No, if you feel like there's a motion was made for a consent calendar, but if you want to separate them, we can take the time to do that. They are in the exact same form that we voted for them before, but if you want to be on record with a negative vote, I understand that.
Well, there may be, I don't think that the school board bill was unanimous.
Okay.
I mean, I could be.
I understand your request. So
let me look it up, but yeah, I do think they should be separate. They're not similar.
Fine. So do I need to withdraw my
just withdraw your motion, please, Mr. Vice Chair, if you would.
Okay. All right, I withdraw my motion.
Okay, now I'll come back to you, Mr. Vice Chair. On Senate Bill 451, the salary increases for the school board members starting the next term and the student member of the board scholarship starting next term. Would you like to make a motion on that?
Yes, I would like to move favorable, Mr. Chair.
Okay, favorable motion. Do I have a second? I have a second. Is there any discussion about this? Okay, seeing none, I think we should probably do a voice vote because of the request. Let me get out my sheet. And Madam Secretary, I hope you're on this too. So
I stay on my job. Thank you.
thank you so much. All right, Vice Chair Jackson. He made the motion, but I seem to have
I
lost
think
him.
he went on mute.
Okay.
Sorry, Mr. Chair, trying to find this unmute button. Aye.
Aye. Delegate Allen.
Aye.
Bhandari.
Aye.
Cardin.
Yes.
Delegate Forbes.
Yes.
Delegate Grammer, I believe absent right now.
No.
Delegate Guyton, also, and I'm waiting, but she was absent earlier. Speaker Jones.
Grammar weighed in. I don't know if you heard him. He's not
Did he?
absent.
He's here now.
He said no.
He said no. Okay.
Thank you.
Thanks. I didn't know you had made it on board. Delegate Guyton, I believe, is absent, but wait a second. I can't see everybody at once sometimes. Speaker Jones is excused. She's preparing for session. Delegate Long.
Yes.
Yes. Delegate Mangione. I'm not hearing him vote. If somebody can see him voting, tell me. Okay, so I'm going to mark him as absent. Delegate McCaskill.
Yes.
Delegate Metzger.
Yes.
Delegate Naraki.
Yes.
Delegate Pasteur.
Yes.
Delegate Phillips.
Yes.
Delegate Ruth.
Yes.
Delegate Stein.
Yes.
Delegate Shalega.
Yes.
Okay, and Delegate White Holland.
Yes.
Okay, I'm going to compare notes with you, Madam Secretary. How many positive votes do you have here?
On mute, Madam
Is
Secretary.
she on mute?
Thank you. I have 16 without not counting you, Mr.
Yes,
Chair.
and the chair does vote positive, so 16.
Okay.
All right, so that bill will be forwarded to, this is actually Ways and Means this bill will go to. So the other bill is the Northwest Baltimore County Sports Tourism Facility and feasibility study for that. Do I have a motion on that bill?
Move favorable.
Do I have a second?
Second.
Okay, is there any discussion on this bill? Okay, seeing none, we will, because it was requested, we'll take a voice vote. Vice Chair Jackson.
My hand didn't get up in time. Sorry.
Okay, I can
was
wait.
having
Thank you.
trouble. This bill in the exact same posture, and we're talking about Senate Bill 804.
We're talking about Senate Bill 804. And Justin, would you please verify that you looked at these and they're in the exact same posture?
Yes.
Okay. I had him go over with a fine tooth comb to make sure there were no differences. So yes is the answer. Under that circumstance, let's go ahead and do a voice vote. Vice Chair Jackson.
Aye.
Delegate Allen.
Aye.
Delegate Bhandari.
Yes.
Delegate Cardin.
Yes.
Delegate Forbes.
Yes.
Delegate Grammer.
Yes.
Delegate Guyton is absent. Delegate Jones is excused. Delegate Long.
Yes.
Delegate Mangione. I have him as absent on the previous vote, probably on this one too. Delegate McCaskill.
Yes.
Delegate Metzger.
Yes.
Delegate Naraki.
Yes.
Delegate Pasteur.
Yes.
Delegate Phillips.
Yes.
Delegate Ruth.
Yes.
Delegate Stein.
Yes.
Delegate Shalega.
Yes.
And Delegate White Holland.
Yes.
And the chair votes yes. And there's no reason to check. We had no negative votes. This bill goes on to also, let's see, this I don't know what committee it goes to, but we'll pass it on to the proper delegation. Okay, that's 3 pieces of business. Now we have 2 bills before us. I know that Senator Brooks was here, and this is a bill that we have spent an inordinate amount of time on, but it does have some importance. What I would like you to do, if you would, Senators, we're not going to vote on it today, but I would like you to describe what you think the differences are between the bill you are bringing and the bill, because we're very familiar with our version of it, trust me. And what you think the differences are in the amended version that you're bringing to us.
Okay, Chair. Senate Bill 450, the Senate bill, it conforms with the House bill with one additional amendment, and that was Senator Sidnor's amendment. It was amendment number 2134223/1. And what it does, it requires a reporting mechanism to gather valuable standard data surrounding the speed monitoring system. And then if you were to look on the reprint, it would be on page 4. And I guess you would count lines. I don't know, for some reason, the reprint stopped at 19, but if you go down to count down to say line 22, and that's his exact amendment, which lists out the reporting requirements. Yeah.
Okay.
Or you can
Charity,
look at
Charity, I'm sure you can shed light on why some of those wouldn't be, when you do a reprint, you can tell us that sometimes the line, when the line numbers are given, what happens to them.
Right. Well, I'm looking at the third reader, and the amendment is in the third reader of Senate Bill 450.
Okay.
It's on page 7 of the third reader. It actually starts on page 6 of the third reader at line 29 and continues to page 7 to line 11.
Okay, so,
And
and that's the
just an
version
additional reporting requirement.
and that's a version that we would see online if we wanted to look at it. Is that
Yes,
correct?
if you looked at the third reading version of Senate Bill 450.
Does anyone have any questions for Senator Brooks about this amendment or I don't know, anything at all, I guess, about this bill? Delegate Naraki.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I appreciate it. Could we get a little bit more detail of what that reporting requirement looks like? I'm just curious how that requirement relates to sort of the reporting language that we had in our amendments to the House version of this.
And I would draw your attention to the fact that you can see it now on as a third reader, but if Delegate Brooks would like to elaborate, that's Senator Brooks would like to elaborate.
Well,
you know, it was once Delegate Brooks to me. Let's just be clear.
Once a delegate, always a delegate, right?
Thank you. Did you have anything you wanted to elaborate beyond what you said as to the amendment?
Yes, I can. And what it says, and like I say, is in the third reader. But what it says, only before December 31 of each year, the Maryland Police Training and Standard Commission shall compile and make the public available a report from the previous fiscal year on each speed monitoring system program operated by the local jurisdiction under the section. And it must submit the report to the governor and in accordance with paragraph 2.1257 of the state government article. And the report shall include the total number of citations issued, the number of citations issued, and the number of voided and or erroneous violations for the camera, the gross revenue generated by the program, the expenditures incurred by the program, the net revenue generated by the program, and the total amount of any payments made to a contractor under the program, a description of how the net revenues generated by the program was used, and then the number of employees of the local jurisdiction involved in the program. Number 9 would be the type of speed monitoring system used by the local jurisdiction. 10 would be the location at which each speed monitoring system was used in the local jurisdiction. The activation started and stop dates, and then the number of citations issued by each speed monitoring location for a speed monitoring system program in the county. So yeah, it's in the third reader. So you know, it's in the reprint. So yeah.
Thank you, Senator.
Senator, I appreciate that. Mr. Chair, can I ask one further? Is that okay?
Absolutely. Absolutely. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Senator, in our amended version, the cross-file of this, the House cross-file of this, we had some reporting requirements for looking at issues of equity. I'm really concerned about that with these cameras. Would you be amenable to us having that discussion again? I think it's an important discussion to make sure that we are not overburdening certain neighborhoods with these devices. There's a lot of data out from certain institutions about different neighborhoods, particularly African American neighborhoods in other cities, having a disproportionate rate of speed camera violations.
I thought that was addressed in your initial amendment that we conformed, and I think, speeding is speeding, right now, this particular bill, you got to be going above, but it's between 20 and 35 miles an hour. And then you don't get, the camera doesn't engage until you're going 12 miles beyond the posted speed limit, So we're talking about protecting kids and people who live in these communities, in a residential community, So I just think that it's something that's going to provide safety to those communities. And we know now if you're going more than 35 miles per hour and if there is an accident, the likelihood of there being a major or life-threatening injury goes up exponentially over that speed limit of 35 miles an hour. So,
and Senator, I'm not questioning that at all. I would point to a study from the Fines and Fees Justice Center, though, that looks at speed cameras in Washington, D.C. and shows that there's a 17 times more likely rate of citation issued to African Americans than other races in Washington, D.C. That's where I'm getting at. I'm concerned about that sort of stuff there.
Yeah, if you're speeding, I don't think it has anything to do with your color, nationality. If you're speeding, you're speeding, and I want people in my communities to drive the speed limit, and we've got support from and I think this information was sent to you from the chief of Baltimore County Police, Councilman Patoka, Councilman Erdl, Councilman Koch, Community Leader Mildred Owens, Shirley Supik, Liberty Road Community Council, several people who are supporting this bill. And I don't want to put a color on somebody violating the law. If you're violating the law, let's treat them all good, treat them all bad, but treat them all the same.
Sure.
And then,
we agree on that, Senator.
Yes. Okay. Okay.
All right, well, thank you. I really feel it's necessary to point out, I see 5 hands up on this bill. And this bill has a certain status with the Environment and Transportation Committee. We can spend some time discussing these amendments, but I'm going to be clear, this may change during the course of the week before we vote on this bill next week, that Environment and Transportation Committee has been clear with us that if we send this bill to them with this spread of amendments, they are not going to take it up. And that, so all I would say is our options here going forward are the practical options are for us to return this bill to a form as it was introduced in a previous session in 2023, or to send it with these amendments, in which case it's highly unlikely that the Environment and Transportation Committee will take it up. Now, in the interim, I will speak to the chair of Environment and Transportation and see if there has been any change in their attitude toward it. But I see 5 hands up, and if we're going to discuss these amendments one by one, we may be doing an exercise in things that may not be significant. But with that, I'm going to move
Mr.
to
Chair.
people. Delegate Cardin, yes, yeah, point of order there.
Yeah, just a point of order, just for Delegate Naraki, the amendment that he was questioning or asking about is actually in the 3rd reader of the Senate bill. So I just wanted to make sure you were aware of that.
Yes, that's why I suggested that we're not going to vote on it today, because this is something different, significantly different than what we did before. And so and we also know that this bill has been going through a number of iterations and concerns by people. And to that end, we had to make a rather rapid decision right before crossover. Now we have some time to think, and if people want to discuss amongst themselves what their attitude is toward this bill, I think, though, we should bear in mind the practical chances for this bill to pass in various ways going forward. Not that we have to do that, but I think that would be the most rational and practical way for us to proceed. Delegate Phillips, did you want to say anything else? I'm sorry.
So I'll only say one other thing. There was another bill that came through out of E&T where there was another jurisdiction. I was listening carefully, and they made some changes and made some amendments to their speed camera bill. So I'm curious about how one jurisdiction can get some changes and we can't.
Okay, well,
I'm not on ENT, so
that would be a great thing for us to address offline during the week with folks in ENT or the chair or the vice chair of ENT. We have a couple of people on this committee who serve on ENT. But so in other words, we don't have to give up here. But I think we need to think carefully about what our possibilities are. And that's yet another one. So thank you for pointing that out. Delegate Carden.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I just, you indicated what I was going to say about the fact that with this amendment, this bill is probably not going to see the light of day in ENT. And number two, however, ENT did pass, as Delegate Phillips indicated, another bill for another jurisdiction that did have random amendments that didn't allow it to be what ENT indicated to us, which was that they want them all the speed camera programs to be the exact same policy. And so I think that there's some inconsistencies going on there that we might want to investigate.
Okay, and that's, like I said, you have 7 days now everyone does have 7 days to talk and suggest things that we might do next week when we bring this bill up for possible voting and for amendment if we want to. Delegate Szeliga.
Thanks, Mr. Chair. And thanks, Senator Brooks. You guys have done a lot of work on this bill and taken a lot of the amendments we had offered and apparently passed them through the Senate. So that's good news. I was wondering if you would be open to having some kind of reporting on the bill that lets us know, and it may be included. I did read the third reader. I know there's some reporting back to us about flagged registrations. So just to remind everybody, if someone doesn't pay their speed camera ticket, and we've through the amendments ensured that they're trying to use the most current address and they're not sending it to people whose cars were stolen. But if they aren't able to pay the speed camera ticket and then it gets a late fee on it, then somebody's car registration is flagged and they can't renew their registration before they pay all of that. That might be interesting to know as well. And I don't know if you'd be amenable to knowing that, but that could be helpful to see if it's having a financial impact. Again, we all care about speeding and community safety.
Right. But I thanks, Delegate, for that. But I think that's in the bill. But
okay.
Yes.
I'll read the reporting more carefully, but I did notice there is reporting and we could certainly make sure that's included. Thank you.
Okay, sure.
Thank you, Delegate Szeliga. Delegate Naraki.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. And this is just not a question, but a comment with respect to my two subcommittee members, my chair, Carden, and Delegate Phillips. We have moved several bills in ENT this session that place requirements with respect to automated camera systems on safety improvements. I know of at least one for Montgomery County and another for Prince George's County. We have moved another bill that has reporting requirements with respect to where tickets are being mailed to. So I definitely think that this is something that I'm going to take up with my chairman in ENT this week, and others can as well. But I think it's important for us to have that discussion, why we're being placed in a different posture than other jurisdictions around the state.
Thank you for that. Excuse me, everyone. All right. That'll end the hearing on this bill. Obviously, there'll be some talk amongst us and maybe some conversations with leadership in the Environment and Transportation Committee going forward. I'm going to ask Justin, is Senator West on board yet or not?
Yes, he should be here.
There he is. Okay. So Senator West, we're going to take up House Bill 1067, which is, guess what? A speed monitoring camera bill. Very exciting. But this one will actually need a description because it has been before us, but we want to make sure that the one we have is actually in rules, so we haven't seen it in the delegation yet.
Yes, I think, thank you, Mr. Chair. Sorry I'm late.
I didn't get the message until about 5 minutes ago that I was supposed to be on the Zoom. So here I am. I'm glad you all had been meeting for the better part of an hour without me. So the background of this is I raised a flag earlier in the session among the state senators for Baltimore County. I said, every time I go on the Beltway, it seems I'm driving at about the normal speed, the posted speed. And all of a sudden, and I keep my eyes on the road in front of me, and all of a sudden this car shoots past me like a rocket ship going 90, 100 miles an hour. I mean, an incredibly excessive rate of speed. And this has not happened once. This has happened last weekend. My wife and I were heading over to Washington, D.C. We're driving down the west side of the Beltway, and it happened. It happens all the time. So I admit that I made a wrong vote a couple of years ago on the Jones Falls Expressway speed camera. I voted against it. I thought it was just a cash grab, and people in the city were trying to go after my constituents, because my constituents live right at the end of the Jones Falls Expressway, to get a lot of money. Turned out I was wrong. The speed camera for the Jones Falls Expressway has done exactly what it was supposed to do. The traffic has slowed down. The traffic is much more these days driving at the posted speed. And the revenues to the city have been far less than anticipated, because drivers are driving at the normal speed and they're not being ticketed. So with that as a predicate, I ran this flag up in Baltimore County, and I said, should we consider doing speed cameras in the Baltimore Beltway? Excuse me, the Baltimore County portions of the Baltimore Beltway. So make it a local bill. And I got 7 of the 8 senators who agreed with alacrity. Everybody said whenever we have town hall meetings, the number one issue people raise is excessive speeding on the Beltway. And of course, this is the 1-year anniversary of when 2 cars were chasing each other at extreme rates of speed. One went off the highway into the work zone and killed 6 people. So the bill was drafted, as originally drafted, it permitted Baltimore County to put speed cameras on the Beltway. It turns out unlike the Jones Falls Expressway, where the city basically controls the highway, in Baltimore County, the county does not control the highway. The highway is controlled by the State Highway Administration. So we amended the bill to not require, to authorize the State Highway Administration to put speed cameras in the Baltimore Beltway. The fine is only $40 piece. So the fine isn't going to cause anybody to lose their house because it's so excessive. And all of the revenues that are not needed to pay for the speed cameras are to be used to maintain the Beltway. So it's not a cash grab for Baltimore County or for the state, for that matter. And with that, we passed it overwhelmingly in the state Senate. As I recall, we got nearly unanimous votes in the state Senate on this bill. There is a House crossfile that Delegate Stein introduced, but I only approached him too late. I barely got mine in on time, my bill in on time. And Delegate Stein's bill got in too late and is in rules. So hopefully you all can get the Delegate Stein's bill out of rules and consider passing both of them favorably.
Thank you. We have a couple of questions. We'll go to Delegate Cardin first.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Thank you, Senator West. Always a pleasure working with you, and you're thoughtful. You're gonna be sorely missed next year. I will say that.
No, wait a minute. Everybody says I'm gonna be sorely missed next year. I'm still here until 2026.
Too soon. Yes, sir.
2 years. 2 years.
2 years.
Okay. Number one, there was legislation. I don't know where it went. Maybe Delegate Stein can tell us, but to allow, whether it be state highway or whatever administration will be overseeing these programs, to be able to raise the fees without it coming back to us, or just raising them to, from $40 to like $175 or something like that. I would be very concerned if we are going in with the assumption that this is really a modest bill to get people to slow down, which it does work in the city. And that's no doubt. I go down there every day. And it's amazing the difference. Versus things changing without us realizing it. I'll use the example that, when Jimmy Malone first passed the 695 highway speed camera program in work zones, there was never going to be the ability for it to be used outside of the times when workmen were there. And we have passed legislation this year, which allows us to have it going 24/7, regardless of whether workmen are there. Same thing with school zones, only when schools are in session, speed cameras, and now they can have the speed cameras anytime they want. I just worry that we're gonna, even though I know it's only $40, if we allow for changes without sort of us having oversight, that concerns me. Any thoughts?
Thank you for the question. I think the bill in statute puts a $40 fee, and I don't think the bill permits the State Highway Administration to raise it. I think they'd have to come back and get a new statute passed to raise it. But let me check that out. I have to go back and check it. And I'll send an email to Chair Ebersol with the answer to your question. If indeed it permits the State Highway Administration to willy-nilly change the fee, I'll support an amendment to take that language out of the bill, so that we would all have to approve a higher fee than $40.
Okay. Great. Delegate White Holland.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and thank you, Senator West, for your presentation and for this bill. I think my question pairs or is similarly aligned to Delegate Cardin's question, but what he is elevating is the Maryland Road Worker Protection Act of 2024, again, in response to the tragic deaths of those construction workers that occurred last year. And I know that the Lieutenant Governor, participated and led this work group over the summer, which led to this piece of legislation, the Maryland Road Worker Protection Act. And so I just wanted to know how that bill complements. And again, this bill in the House has successfully crossed over and is now in judicial proceedings. And so I just wanted to know, how does your bill complement or align with the bill that is also moving through the legislature, given that also will increase the fines and will further deter people from speeding in work zones. But just wanted to know how that bill kind of aligns or is similar to, or even complements this proposal. So I just wanted to maybe ask the question a little differently, if you could expound upon that further.
Yeah, so I support the work zone bill as well, but the work zone bill only applies to work zones. And work zones come and go. Once the work is done, they're gone. My bill would apply to the entire Baltimore County portion of the Baltimore Beltway. And I guess the effect of the two bills would be that in a work zone, the State Highway Administration could either comply with the work zone bill or comply with my bill, and either one would be acceptable. But the key about my bill is it applies to all the parts of the Beltway that are not work zones. And frankly, that's where I've seen the speeding going on, that's where I've experienced the speeding. The work zones, I think people tend to drive a little more cautiously because they have all those Jersey barriers and things going on. But outside the speed zone, the work zones, the Beltway is just wide open. And especially if you're not traveling during a heavy rush hour period of time and there are not that many cars on the road, in my experience, lots of cars are driving far faster than they should, and frankly, dangerously. It's scary when a car shoots by me that I have no anticipation is going to happen, and they're going 90 to 100 miles an hour. I tend to jam on my brakes, fearing that they're going to crash right up ahead of me, and unless I slow down, I could become part of the crash site. That's dangerous. So I think there's room for both bills.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Delegate. Sure. Delegate Naraki.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Senator, it's great to see you, as always.
Good to see you too.
I do have some questions. I've spent a lot of time on bills, highway bills like this in E&T. Learned about what this bill is. Typically, when we see these bills in other jurisdictions on highways, there's some guardrails with respect to where they're placed. I've never seen one that says place it along the entire stretch of a highway like this. So, in Prince George's County, there's Piscataway Highway, which has a defined area that is very it's a dangerous stretch of road. In fact, often described as like the most dangerous stretch of road in the country. Obviously, you talked about the camera system that's along 83 in Baltimore City, but that again is also a defined stretch. Just a quick look, the Beltway is just about 52 miles long. Now, I know that is not all in Baltimore County. Some of it is in Anne Arundel County. Maybe some is also in Baltimore City, but the vast majority of that is in Baltimore County. So I think this would be fairly precedent setting to say we're just going to not place any guardrails with respect to areas that have demonstrated a need for this. And I have some concerns with just kind of leaving it that open-ended there. So could you speak to that a little bit?
Yeah, we thought about that, or I thought about that, and I don't know where the dangerous areas in the Beltway are. The State Highway Administration is far better equipped to make that decision than I am. And my decision was, if I tried to specify, you can put it between Loch Raven Boulevard and Providence Road, for example. That's a stretch that has those dangerous curves, very sharp curves that go up if you're driving east, you go up a hill and you curve as you're going up the hill. Then
very familiar with that area, Senator.
We're going to leave the stretch between Providence Road and York Road without speed cameras. So my feeling was rather than specify exactly, and what it does say is no more than 4 of them can be operative at any one time. So we're not going to have all the speed cameras working, but the drivers would not know which ones are operative at any one time. So they would have to be concerned that all of them could be operative. And by the way, there's no obligation to put any number of speed cameras up at any one time. The state highway people asked me, could we start with just 2, one each direction? I said, that'd be fine. Let's walk before we run. And let's be prudent about where we put them, but let's put them in places that hopefully the State Highway Administration determines are dangerous, especially dangerous, because we have experience with people speeding in those particular portions of the road. Again, they know what those portions are. I don't.
Sure. Mr. Chair, may I ask one other question as well?
Absolutely.
Thank you, sir.
We love our speed camera questions, sir.
Senator, the other follow-up question I would ask, so again, on those roadways that I indicated there, Piscataway Highway in Prince George's County, the speed camera in Baltimore City, the revenue that comes from those cameras is also dedicated to highway improvements in those areas. Is that in, and again, I have not read your whole bill yet. I'm going to take a deep dive at it here, but is that in there that the revenue is going to safety improvements on the highway and not just kind of going into the general fund?
Absolutely. Yeah, that was a sine qua non of my support of the bill. I don't want a bill that's going to be a fundraising tool for government. I want a bill that, to the extent that the money exceeds the cost of installing and maintaining the speed cameras, the money will be used to maintain that road.
Okay. Thank you, Senator.
Delegate Shalega, question.
Thank you so much. So I did notice I'm reading the reprint on page, or the third reader that passed, page 8. It says, not more than 16 speed monitoring systems may be placed on a highway.
Right.
But then 4 will be working. So they could put 16 speed cameras up and then randomly turn on 4.
Yeah, I remember, as I think was Delegate Naraki said, the Beltway is 52 miles long. So we're not talking about a little stump of a road like the Jones Falls Expressway. We're talking about a long highway. So my guess is they won't get to 16. There'll be far fewer than that. But to the extent they're catching people and stopping people from speeding, and more cameras would catch more people and stop more people from speeding, I'm happy. I don't want people driving 100 miles an hour on the Baltimore Beltway. Period. So that's where I'm coming from on that.
Well, of course, Senator, no one wants people driving 100 miles an hour. So opposing this bill doesn't mean we're approving people driving 100 miles an hour.
No.
I don't think the senator suggested that. but
Well,
thank
it
you.
is kind of insinuated. So part of the amendments that we put on the other speed camera bill that we just discussed had a provision to ensure that the speed camera company would use the most updated addresses because, you know, there have been quite a bit of problems with speed camera companies not using that information. And then if you look on page 12 and page 14 of your third reader bill, there, you know, this would cause a registration to be flagged and someone to not be able to renew their registration. And then additionally, we put information on stolen cars. You know, my mother-in-law's car was stolen. The people that used her car got easy pass violations, speed camera tickets, and all kinds of stuff. And, you know, it was quite a job to unravel that yarn that, you know, was tied up. So would you be amenable to ensuring that, you know, the company that issues these violations is not entrapping people through wrong addresses or stolen cars?
Absolutely. If language like that is needed in the bill to make it work, I'm more than happy to accede to an amendment containing that sort of language.
Thank you.
Thank you, Senator. I have one last hand, and it is Delegate Stein, Speaker Pro Tem.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and Senator, thank you for introducing this bill. As you noted, my cross file is still in rules, but I certainly do support this legislation, and I completely agree with the senator that the Beltway is a speedway. And last year, I asked in August, I asked for data on crashes on the Beltway for a particular stretch. It was between US 40 and I-795. It was just during the first 8 months of the year, there were 226 crashes on that 6-mile stretch. And so I think that reflects the fact that speed is a very serious problem. And so, you know, why speed cameras would be helpful. Thank you.
Thank you, Delegate. And as I said, when I raised this flag up the flagpole, immediately, Miss JB Jennings wasn't there. He tends to work on Mondays, and that's when we have our delegation meeting. So he wasn't present, but the other 7 state senators were there. All the other 6, immediately said, we totally agree with this. This is a great idea. Let's go together on a bill. And you'll find that 6 of the 7 state senators in Baltimore County from both parties are supporting this bill.
Thank you. Delegate Cardin, one final bite at the apple.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Just want to ask Delegate Stein if there was any disaggregation of that information, the 250 crashes, how many were speed related versus distracted driving related. I now drive down the highway. Maybe I'm distracted, but I'm looking at more than half the cars people are on their phones. And I'm wondering if it's speed real. I mean, granted, I agree with you that there's too much speeding going on, but I would be interested to see if I would bet you more than half of those, maybe even 90% of those are not speed related, but the speed related ones might be more fatal. But I'd be interested to see that.
Yeah, I'll take another look at this. It doesn't disaggregate the crashes based on cause, but I'll see if I can dig into it a little bit further, and I'll let you know.
If there are no other questions, we'll put this bill on the agenda next week for possible amendment and voting. We have one more bill.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you, Senator, for coming to our meeting. I would say coming over, but that's really not what happens online anymore. So we'll just say for coming to our meeting. We have one that concludes the hearing on Senate Bill. I want to make sure I have the right number, 1067. We have one more Senate bill to take up. It is new to us, so we will have a hearing, but will not move into voting on it. Senate Bill 1010. This is Senator Klausmeyer's bill, and I believe Sam Deschanel is here to testify this bill to us.
Yes.
Mr. Deschanel, you have the floor.
Yes, hello. Senator Klausmeyer unfortunately couldn't make it out of a couple meetings she had already scheduled this morning. So you have me to present a bill that is thankfully not about speed cameras. This Senate Bill 1010. Or for the record, my name is Sam Deschanel, Legislative Director for Senator Klausmeyer. Senate Bill 1010 requires a retailer to have written approval from the Baltimore County Board of License Commissioners before applying to the state Alcohol, Tobacco, and Cannabis Commission Executive Director for an individual storage permit. The purpose of this legislation is to give the Baltimore County Board of License Commissioners the final say on how large a store can be. We're seeing a new trend where retailers are requesting a certain size store at the public hearing at the local level, and after being approved locally, they're going to the state for additional space for storage. The state is not required to apply the same standards as the local board when granting these requests. This has resulted in stores increasing in size by as much as 25%, and this is often done in the same building or directly adjacent to the approved location, with the local board having no authority to regulate it. So this legislation just corrects that problem by making local approval a requirement prior to seeking approval at the state level. Anne Arundel County already does this. This bill just adds Baltimore County to it, and this bill passed the Senate unanimously. So with that, I thank you all for the time, and I ask for your favorable report on Senate Bill 1010.
Thank you, Mr. Deschanel. We have one witness to testify. Jack Malani, I see that. I'm sure you're pulled over to the side of the road to do your testimony.
I'm going to make a point of letting Delegate Cardin know I'm sitting in a shopping center.
Since it was just brought up, I thought perhaps I knew that you would be in compliance. You have a couple of minutes to give us your take on this bill, please.
Real simple. This just puts everything back in the hands of the locals, and it's done at a public hearing. And we all think it's important that if you want to come in for a certain size store, tell the public and do it at the hearing. Don't play this game where you take so much square feet and then go to the state where they don't apply those same standards. So we're fully in favor of it. And side note, what's the emblem on your shirt, Mr. Chair?
You know, I'm not exactly at home today, so I had to scramble up a shirt to wear to this. And it is a high school that I taught at, okay? Not a Baltimore County high school, so thanks a lot for that. I really appreciate it.
I will let my daughter know. She'll be very happy. I did take a picture of it, so thank you.
For the record, since he's asked, it is the emblem of Marriott's Ridge High School, one of the several high schools I taught mathematics at. So there you go.
And
Nice
actually, my
going.
daughter teaches. My daughter
Nice going.
teaches
Thanks a
there
lot.
currently, so she'll be happy.
All right. Enough of that. Enough of the personal stuff there. Are there any questions about the bill for either the sponsor's staff or for Mr. Malani? Okay, seeing none, that concludes the hearing, and that brings us to the end of our agenda for today. We'll have a rich agenda next week, as you can guess, but I strongly suggest that, especially on bills that have been before us and that we have lots of suggestions on, that people do their homework, talk to each other, talk to members of ENT to see where we stand on those bills, and perhaps we can move through them with some alacrity. But, you know, if the time is needed, we will take it. Are there any other, is there anything else for the good of the order while we are here today together? Okay, seeing none, I would like to adjourn this meeting and tell you all that I'll see you Monday. See you later.
Thanks, Chair.